Okay, I'm back. Um, I added some details to the family tree. So we've got now, I added like oldest daughter, middle daughter, youngest daughter. All right. So I posted that on Google Classroom, but you should have drawn your own in your notes. All right. I also decided that we are going to forge ahead with starting scene one today, and that for tomorrow, I would like you to please um, read scene one. So, a couple things about that. Um, I am assuming that you are familiar with the Folger editions, but that may not be a safe assumption. So, these are these versions of the book that are used, really commonly in schools. And the nice thing about them is that there's like a key, okay? So that on the side of each page, right, there's help, there's support. Now, they don't necessarily gloss all the words, and particularly, they're not always going to gloss some of Shakespeare's bodier word choices. So I'll be filling you in on those, but probably more in person than on the video. All right, so when you have a reading assignment, like for scene one, right, it's half the number of pages, it seems like. So, okay. Sorry, I thought I was showing it to you. It's not that long. All right. I mean, some substance, but we'll try to get you launched so that it's not as hard. So if you didn't have time to finish this video in class, you should watch it at home. All right. So let's start now. I'm going to put myself over here. Okay, so the first page is actually fairly far into the book. I would recommend that you avoid the introduction. It's full of spoilers, although it is a tragedy, so the ending is kind of semi-predictable. But don't read the intro unless you don't mind knowing everything that happens. Here's another list of characters. Okay, and then we're starting. It's the same, just I like the graphic organizer better. And so we're starting on what they call page 7 here. Okay. Act and scene in a play is always shown as, I'm going to change all these lowercase Roman numerals to Arabic numerals, but leave the Roman numerals for the act. So this would be act 1, scene 1. This would be act 1, scenes 1 and 2, etc. All right. As I said in the previous video, there's no way we're finishing it for Friday. So the only thing that's real here is the work for Thursday. All right. Now, there is an online folder edition, and I think I already posted that link so that if you're out, I made a PDF of it and posted that. So if you are yourself not in school and you weren't able to get a book yesterday, you can use that. Okay. So there's that PDF for you. All right. We're going to jump in. We're not going to get very far. Just read a couple pages. Like most Shakespeare plays, we start with sort of a side conversation. We come in the middle of something. And this is the case in Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and most of his plays begin with a seemingly peripheral exchange that actually turns out to be important. So here we even begin in the beginning of, we jump in the beginning of a conversation. And this is between Kent. So remember, Kent was one of our good guys. I'm going to make myself smaller. One of our, Kent and Gloucester are both good, and they're both, buddies of Lear and Gloucester. So those two kind of counterparts there in the beginning. And they're talking about Edmund, one of Gloucester's sons, who apparently has been gone for a while, and now he's back. So they make light of the fact that Edmund was born out of wedlock, that Gloucester and his mother were not married when he was conceived. And they make somewhat bawdy, especially Gloucester, bawdy jokes about this. So let's listen to this first scene, and then we'll take some notes.
This is Audible.
I thought the king had more effect at the Duke of Albany than Cornwall.
It did always seem so to us, but now, in the division of the kingdom, it appears not which of the dukes he values most, for qualities are so weighed that curiosity and neither can make choice of either's moiety.
Is not this your son, my lord?
His breeding, sir, hath been at my charge. I have so often blushed to acknowledge him that now I am braced to it.
I cannot.
Okay, so a couple notes. First of all, it's important that this is in prose. So we talked a lot about iambic pentameter, right, when we were doing sonnets, and most of, a large part of Shakespeare's plays are written in iambic pentameter, but this is prose. And if you look ahead to where the king actually first comes in on the next page, that is where the iambic pentameter, the verse begins. Okay, so it's prose or verse. So this is prose. And the way you can tell if something's prose or verse is if you see here, it's all lowercase. In verse, it's all uppercase on the left. Okay, so this is where the verse begins. And the verse should be an iambic pentameter. It's very rough iambic pentameter here. There's a lot of flaws in the meter. Prose is spoken more slowly. It's actually often associated with higher ranking characters, but it's spoken slowly because they don't have the iambic pentameter to help keep moving them along. Iambic pentameter allowed the actors to speak really, really quickly, which is how they were able to actually perform these big, long plays in a reasonable amount of time. Today, the emphasis in performance in Shakespeare is very naturalistic. People seem to do their best to make it sound like regular, colloquial, contemporary English, which slows it way down. Elizabethans in general were a very auditory culture compared to us. We're a very visual culture. We can be bombarded with images and absorb them because we're so used to that mode of communication. It's everywhere around us. They didn't have that, right? But they could absorb auditory information at a really high rate. It's pretty interesting. Okay. So you're using your key here, and you know that when they says been more affected to, it means more partial to. So in other words, I thought the king liked the Duke of Albany more than Cornwall. So this idea of, who's going to get the land, okay? Because he's going to divide up the kingdom. All right. Moiety is a word that we had as a vocab word, right? Each one's part. Is not this your son, my lord? Now that's an example of built-in stage direction. That suggests that Edmund is standing nearby, right? You could make it so that he is in earshot and he is listening to this entire conversation, or you could make it be that he's a little ways off talking with somebody else. But given that, we're told we just have these three characters on stage, he's probably in earshot, which makes the conversation that ensues even more shocking, okay? So there's a lot of earthy humor here and wordplay, okay? And I won't go into all of it right now, but, Gloucester says, right, I've been blamed for his breeding. Like I've blushed to acknowledge him. And when Kent says, I cannot conceive you, kind of innocently, I don't know what you mean, Gloucester's response, this young fellow's mother could, in other words, conceive, right, or become pregnant. Whereupon she grew round-wombed and had a son. Ere, remember, means before. She had a husband for her bed. Okay. I'll put the audio on again, but when Ken says, I cannot wish the fault undone, the issue of it being so proper and proper, right? You see in the gloss there, can mean handsome. There's a lot of textual evidence that Edmund should be played by an actor who is conventionally attractive for whatever the era. He's considered handsome. Okay. All right, let's listen a little bit more.
See, oh, sir, this young fellow's mother could, whereupon she grew round-wombed, and had indeed, sir, a son for her cradle, ere she had a husband for her bed. You smell a fault?
I cannot wish fault undone, the issue of it being so proper.
But I have a son, sir, by order of law, some year elder than this, who yet is no dearer in my account. Though this knave came something saucily to the world before he was sent for, yet was his mother fair. There was good sport of his making, and the whoreson must be acknowledged. Do you know this noble gentleman, Edmund?
No, my lord.
My Lord of Kent. Remember him hereafter as my honourable friend.
My services to your lordship.
I must love you and sue to know you better.
Sir, I shall study deserving.
He hath been out 9 years, and away he shall again.
Okay, now, so they started this conversation as sort of almost like court gossip, right? Who does the king like more? Because remember, we've got these 3 children, and King Lear, getting old, wants to divide up the kingdom. And so, of course, everybody's talking who's going to get what, right? So we learn that Gloucester has another son by order of law, so that would be Edgar. Remember, Edgar is good, who is yet no dearer, not dearer in my account. So he loves them both, right? He's saying the other one is legitimate. This is so typical of me. Look at that. I put them in the wrong order. Saying that Edgar is older. Oopsie. Let's fix that. It's very important that Edmund is illegitimate. Okay. So he loves them both, and we're going to write that down. Because being loved by parents, being loved by children is really important in this play. And yet Gloucester is saying in front of Edmund, there was good sport at his making. In other words, the conceiving of him was fun. Okay, I'm going to have to go back and check the order of the guys. And he calls him a whoreson, which would be, it sounds really bad because it sounds like he's saying his mother's a whore, but it was a kind of casual slur, insult, could be used affectionately, could be used seriously. And then Edmund's got to be standing close enough that he can just turn and speak to him. Okay, do you know this noble gentleman, Edmund? No, my lord. And he's basically introducing him, my Lord of Kent. Okay, and we see that Edmund is very proper, very polite, and that he's been gone 9 years. And he's leaving again. Away he shall again. Now we segue to the pomp and circumstance of the actual king arriving. Okay, and when he says our darker purpose here, what he means, I'm just looking to see if it's glossed. What he means is more secret. or more sort of in confidentiality, right? And when Lear has said, attend the lords of France and Burgundy, Gloucester, he's saying, go. You go to France and Burgundy. He's sending him out of the room. So this is going to be just the inner circle of the family here. And Lear puts down this map, and then he begins to divide up the kingdom amongst the three. But, and I'm going to ask you to read this tonight, he wants to know which daughter loves him most. And this is where the fairy tale thing really kicks in, because I'm sure you're familiar with the story, So, daughter number one, how much do you love me? Oh, I love you so much, Father. Oh, very good. I'll give you this portion. Daughter number two, how much do you love me? Right? And it plays out. And then, of course, with the third daughter, there's a glitch. The map that he's looking at here, it's going to be a map of England and Scotland. And Cornwall, Duke of Cornwall, and Recorn, right? Regan and Cornwall are going to get the western part, okay, of England. And Albany, that would be a Scottish name, they're going to get the northern part. And then Cordelia, the youngest daughter, the favorite daughter, which he says straight up, should get the heart, which would be the heart of England, which they would probably consider the best part, okay? So I'm going to pause here, and I think I'm going to pause here and ask you again, read scene 1 for tomorrow, okay? This is homework, just as though I were there. Do your best to read it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, and I will adjust the calendar for Friday, okay? All right, take care, have a good day. Thanks for listening and bearing with me, and I got to sort out the Edgar Edmond thing. Okay, all right, bye.